G'day listeners, it's Peps, and tonight we have the 2022 Collingwood Season Preview. Will it be the season for the Magpies to swoop back into the top 8? Or will it be another year where they leave with their tail between their legs? I can't answer that one for you, but I've reached out to two of the sharpest minds around the black and white. We've got Sly, we've got Spook. They're the hosts of the Collingwood Rant. Gentlemen, welcome to Lace Out.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thanks, Peps.
Now, I must say, last year, the feedback that I got about you two was overwhelmingly just love.
Terrible?
Love. No, not terrible. They just love the love that you had for Nathan Buckley. So I need to ask, now that he's not there, have you still got the Bucks love flowing through your veins?
I loved him as a player. Still love him as a player. As a coach, maybe not so much.
Hater.
You weren't as much a hater, were you, Spook?
No, more of a quiet annoyance, really, more than anything.
I
I don't like to express my anger out all that often.
I will mention, though, with his commentary, if I hear him suggesting things he didn't do as a coach, then I will go ballistic.
Then you're going to explode.
Yeah.
He's already started.
He's already started. Yeah, it's a good idea to do this and do that. And you're like, hold on a second. What made me laugh about your one game that you had last year was against the D's. You did beat us up in the traditional Queen's Birthday game at the SCG, where it was Bucks' farewell game, and you went out and demolished the D's. And you sit back and go, now, you know, if you had done this more than just once, the bloke could still be here. It was like they're hugging him, see you later. It's like, mate, you got this guy, let go. Like, he quit because of this.
Yeah, it's probably
the most weirdest situation. But that saying, new coach, where's it going to go? What have you heard so far? Give us your little overview of how the preseason has gone. What's the outlook from your perspective about the Pies, and most importantly, Craig McRae?
Well, it's good that we're getting the injuries in early. We don't want to leave those too late. We've got a few
and suspensions. Don't forget your suspensions.
So we're doubling up, and shout out to the AFLW team who's also doing it in support of the AFL team. So they're also getting injuries in. Watching the game against JWS, I didn't notice it as much against the Hawthorn game because I was drinking, but against GWS, I actually noticed they have sort of a bit of a system that Matthews employed at Collingwood in the 90s, and which he did at Brisbane, which is running in waves and having these cascading numbers.
Yep.
So there's obviously a lot more intent to move the ball quickly and forward and directly rather than what they did last year where they went from one wing to the other, then back again, and then back again. So it's good that he's trying to get some quicker ball movement in there because you have players who can use the ball. You have a little bit of pace and all that. And just the simple reality is move the ball forward into the forward line. Unfortunately, watching that GWS game, we still skill errors. Terrell were going inside forward 50 and dominated large passages of play and just didn't convert it to score. So obviously we're a work in progress, but we'll have to see how that clicks together over the course of the year.
Yeah, so you went 6-16 last year. You actually had the 14th best percentage, even though you finished second last. So you were able to get a bit of a score on the board.
I think that's the opposite, though. I think we just bored some teams to low scores. So I think we probably kicked about 3 goals in the game, and maybe Geelong kicked like 5. So they weren't blowing it. Yeah, they weren't blowing it.
Warm-up tally.
What was that, Spook?
Pretty desperate.
What was that?
They started to include the warm-up tally.
Oh, no.
We slot through 4 before the nets come down. They were on the scoreboard.
Well, you remember now, everything should be solved because we found out what the biggest issue was, and I can't believe that they never worked this out. It's Mason Cox. Now he's got the glasses on. Now he's got the visors on. Now he's got the superhero gogs. Like, he's already destroyed Richmond's chance of going at a 4-peat. What's he going to do to the rest of the competition now that he's got the black sunnies on, the hope? Because he was a bit of a coach killer. Is he now going to be more of a premiership threat because the big fella has finally been able to see the ball?
Oh, watching that Hawthorn game, I was thinking maybe there's something to these glasses. And watching the GWS game, it was like, yeah, I don't think so. Or he's got the wrong ones on for that game. Look, the thing with Cox is move the ball quickly to him. Too many times under Buckley, he was just standing there with 4 players hanging off him. You're bombing it to him. He has games where he just gets his hands to it and he just drops it. about, being a premiership threat or, riding his back to a premiership, we're going to need a bigger back, a lot bigger back.
I was surprised. He has only played 3 more games than Brody Myercheck.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's about right, because they sort of came together, 218, they sort of both came on.
Yeah, I just didn't think they persisted that much with him.
There's been passages where they've persisted, and then Buckley sort of lost faith in him, and he was dropped, and then there was desperation and brought him. I mean, the reality is they just don't have anyone else. They had Ben Reid, who they kept bringing back in, so he could break down, and then they could just throw him back out, and then they'd bring him back in for another breakdown. The key forward recruiting over, the last, 10 years has been pretty average at Collingwood. We just don't seem to invest that much faith in talls. And when we go for them, it's with like a lower pick, it's like a 30 pick or a 40 pick. Yep. So, I mean, Cox gets a lot of flack, but I mean, unfortunately, I don't think he's a forward. I think the reality is he's a 7-foot-tall ruckman. If anyone could just get a 7-foot-tall player to be a full forward, everyone would be doing it. Yep. He plays that position like a ruckman. He'll have that one really great game, and then he'll just have like 2 or 3 where he doesn't really do that much, and then you'll have another great game, and everyone go, "Why doesn't he do this all the time?" It's because he's a ruckman.
I don't get it. I don't think anybody gets it. I don't think Collingwood supporters have any idea what his best position is. But look, I'm looking at your group here. The same names tend to keep coming up. Pendlebury, Sidebottom, Howe, Grundy, Adams, Hoskin Elliott, Maynard, Moore, DeGoey, and we'll get onto him in a moment. So, you look at the names and there's the talent on the park, but what happened last year? Was it all injuries? Was it that there was just dissension at the club? Was it the report that Eddie broke out? Was it the proudest day in the club's history? There's just everything on and off the field was a bit of a debacle that led on to the result pretty much.
It's an amalgam of all things above. Yep. I think it's you hit a point where eventually I think everything just breaks and then it's a chain of things unraveling. And, that debacle with the Do Better report was probably the catalyst for everything. And I think we'll hear more about it over the next year or two, but there'll be more stories coming out about how unsettled everything was behind the scenes.
I mean, I think the other thing, we mentioned it on the Collingwood Rant. In 2018, we played this, for the first time in Buckley's tenure, we played this really good, basically a Richmond game, just moving the ball quickly, giving those medium-sized forwards every chance. All the forwards kick like 30-plus goals. I don't know why, but then there was a shift in mentality to play more of a possession game in 2019, and it just started to break down. And when they were possessing that, they just couldn't find the way forward, so then they just go sideways and all that. And over the course of from 19 to 20 to 21, it just continually broke down, and then it reverted to what we saw in the Buckley, 215, 214, 216. You'd have that one great game where you beat a Melbourne, a top team, for example, and then you'd play a bottom 4 team the next week and you get smashed. And you'd go, I don't know what's happening here. Their system isn't working. It's not cohesive consistently. So I'm not sure why they moved away from the 218 formula. I mean, I suspect because they lost that grand final in the last 90 seconds, they thought we need to learn to control the ball a bit better. But
control in the last 2 minutes, not the whole season. I keep saying it doesn't matter how good your game plan is. If you don't have the cattle to carry it out, if you don't have a highly skilled team, a possession game plan is not going to work.
Well, that's a really good point. You'd think that a coach who was probably one of the best kicks I've ever seen would go look at some of those players and go, they can't kick the ball like me, so I shouldn't expect them to play a game plan that I could execute, but, they're struggling to hit someone 10 metres away. So I would have rather they just kept playing the 2018 game style. It seemed to work for them. It just fell short in the grand final. That's pretty good for Collingwood. That's pretty good for Collingwood. That's pretty much where they get nowadays.
It's ticking
the last 6 years. Yeah. So I think, as Spook said, there was a lot of things, but I think the breakdowning system really they regressed. And you saw them last year. They actually looked lost. They didn't know how to move forward. They had no idea how to move the ball forward. It was sort of comical and tragic at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, it's all. It's endemic of a system that's in shutdown, and I think that it goes all the way back to the top where the messages just aren't being heard. What direction is being given, it's just not being bought into. It's just an amalgam of different reasons. Apart from the fact there was a lack of skill execution as well, obviously. But I think a lot of it's above the shoulders last year.
But
and you have those epic wins like you did against Melbourne, and that was it.
I mean, the other thing too is
go ahead and lose. You can lose the unlosable at the MCG against the Suns.
Yeah,
that was almost. That was the. I would say that would be in the low point for the season because you would have thought just walking in, beautiful day, we got this covered, and they just played out of their skins. Collingwood did look lost, like you said that day. They really look lost.
I'm just trying to. There's a lot of low points, so it's hard to sort of single out one.
How much bandwidth's on the internet tonight?
I've got 100 gigs, so I reckon we might be able to at least get the first half of the season done.
I mean, the other thing too is you sort of, you had Tom Phillips who played as a prolific wingman, and suddenly he's a defensive forward. You had Josh Daicos, who played as had a breakout season in 2020 as a winger, and suddenly he's in the middle where he's slide and doesn't have the body strength to compete against bigger body midfielders. So there's a few positional changes which just made you scratch your head. And obviously they had 3 players who left, and that really hurt the depth. And the way they drove him out, I'm sure that would have fractured morale. To drive 3 players out like that. I mean, it was 4 with Tattoo also, but it's just, as Spook said, so many things went wrong. It was, if you weren't a Collingwood supporter, you'd be watching again. That's just beautiful to watch.
Finally, it happens to another club but ours. Yeah, it was shocking all the way through. So let's look at this year. Is there anything at the moment that you're hanging your hat on, going, okay, I can see something there within the group,
aside from Nick Daicos,
except for Nick Daicos, because look, we don't want to put too much pressure. We don't want him to become the next Jack Watts and get absolutely manhandled to get in his first game. There'd be nothing better from a Melbourne perspective than just see Petrarca, Oliver, Jackson, and let's throw in Jack Viney, just crunch him in the first tackle when he gets the ball, just to sort of relive what they did to us. But outside of Daicos, is there anything else that's you're hanging your hat on? Like, is Grundy looking fitter? Is Jordan Dagonut looking any better? I don't know, because I can't see it at the moment.
I think it's just really the transition. This is that phase they had sort of from, after the 202-203 grand final losses, they realised they're not good enough and they have to make go through a rebuild. They brought in a lot of young talent there. How good that young talent is, I don't know. But it's really sort of you're building for the future, which I'm sure if everyone stayed on the park, we could make finals. But it is Collingwood, so we already don't have, 4 or 5 players in the park. So it's really about just pumping games in the kids. Hopefully, as you said, hopefully protect some of these kids from being crunched. Especially the guys were just brought in. They missed a lot of third-tier football because of COVID for the last 2 years. So it's really just about cultivating and, not just Nick Daicos. You get guys like Oliver Henry, Sly McRae, all these young guys that have been there for a year or two, just sort of show us that there's something for the future.
And they haven't been able to go out and play their VFL football, like you mentioned. And every club's seen it, where you see players, they need to, not just from a development, but from a confidence perspective. So if they do get called up to the big game, they know, okay, I'll be able to have, a lot of them haven't been able to do so. Victorian-wise, other states may be a little bit different, but that's a tough one to sort of sit back, and these kids are coming in without any form, playing intra-clubs day in, day out.
Yeah, I think, Spook, he knows someone at another club who just talked about the sort of training they were doing during COVID, which is basically glorified kick to kick because they couldn't really do anything else. So, it's okay for the regulars who are playing every week and, have that grounding behind them. But for the young guys, just imagine it'd be terrible. They should have had like 40, 50 VFL games behind them now, but they're still, only got like 5, 10.
Yeah, and there's some that may not have even played any. If they were injured at the start of last year, they wouldn't have played any because it was cut so quickly. All right, I got to ask you about just a couple. Just give me Jamie Elliott, right? We know he's almost a barometer for that forward line. Like, he can do anything, but he's pushing 29. He'll be 30 by the end of the season. How much longer has this guy got? Because he's not the most safe when it comes to the body.
I don't know.
How much of your forward line still hangs on him?
Spook, take that one?
It's a fair bit. It's funny, like you mentioned it, the durability. I was watching the GWS game, and I think he was crunched in the first 10 minutes, and it took him a while to get up. And I think that's how you tend to view him as a player. Like, he's he's dynamic. He's got all the talent in the world. He's skilled. He's attacking the footy's hard. But you just think every crunch, that's the one. And then if he gets up and moves on, you just sit there and you're waiting for the next one that takes him out.
In fairness, there's a few Collingwood players in that category who you just think physical contact is a big worry. How will their body take it? I mean,
I think it's time to think about renaming the club Balsawood.
I told you we got the best here, listeners. Balsawood. Oh, maybe Collingwood.
That's what I call him Collingwood. I mean, he's 29. He's missed 2 years with back injuries. He's had a lot of soft tissue injuries. So, I mean, the thing that worries me at 29, 30 is the yank come really, really quickly. You know, Nathan Buckley won the Brownlow in 03, and that was pretty much his last full season. You know, 04, 05, he's out with hammies. 06, he played most of the year, but he was managed. 07, he missed the bulk of the year. So, at that age, you don't know what longevity is.
And it doesn't take long for that to hit. Like I think we spoke about with Geelong, they've got 12 players over the age of 30. When that hits, it's going to hit them hard. We think it's not going to wait to the end of the year. I think it's going to hit about maybe 2/3 of the way.
Oh, it's just even players.
Colder months.
Yeah. Even when players just lose a step of pace, you know, and then whereas they had poise previously, then suddenly they're rushed. So, you know, it's sort of a worry when you get older players. We actually have a fair few there that are like over 28. You know, Elliott, Sidebottom, Pendlebury, Roughhead, Howe. Even Grundy's like 28 or will be 28 during the season. Can
I ask you quickly about him too as well?
Yeah.
With Grundy, ever since he signed the mega contract extension, hasn't done anything, has he? The last 2 years, has he been poor the last 2 years? Or is it just the way what people see it?
No, he's been poor. He's I think gets a little bit worked out at ruck contests and he doesn't adapt. He just keeps trying the same thing. I think it was last year he had a lot of what I'd call journeyman ruckmen just sort of tussle him and he'd stand there and wrestle with him rather than saying, hey, I'll come in from the other side or whatever the case might be. I mean, the biggest problem with Grundy's always been he gets 115 taps, but how many of them go to his teammates? He generally is problematic as a ruckman because he plays so well as a rucker over, but as a ruckman, you want that Max Gawn type. Tap it to your teammates, take marks in defence, take the occasional one up forward. That's what a ruckman's job is. Anything else is a bonus. So I think with Grundy, hopefully now that they have a different coaching panel there, they'll actually work out a better system that'll also protect him too because he just gets run into the ground. Well, he's been run into the ground also. But the last 2 years have been pretty average for him.
Yeah, it was funny when you were talking about
keep going. System. If there's something implemented there that's going to help him become a better ruckman, then that's the last hope.
Yeah, I'd suggest putting the Collingwood players in the opposition jumpers. That could probably help him.
or wearing Cox's glasses.
Or just maybe do the complete opposite of what they are normally going to do.
They could do the George Costanza.
They could. Because you have a look last year, you were ranked second in marks per game. When you got a high possession game, you're going to get that.
Yeah.
You were ranked fourth for hitouts per game. So he was getting his hand on it.
Oh, he'll definitely get his hand to it.
Yeah. But fifth for clangers.
I mean, there is a
when you got a high possession game.
About hitouts to advantage. We don't record that. You can smash the ball 200 times, but if there's only 10 of them that go to your teammate, it's what's the 200 mean?
And I recall, I looked at the stats about midway last year. He was on top for hitouts, but he was just on top for hitouts with advantage, even though you had so many more hitouts. And you would have thought that if he's getting that many more hitouts, he should have a lot more to advantage. But he was really just, and he was up there with some, you know, like who's the Carlton ruckman, that Paraket, whatever the hell his name is?
Isn't it?
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, you know, he was just in front of him. You know, it's like that guy's a young player in terms of hitouts to advantage. So it really is. You need a much better system in terms of capitalising on his ruck dominance.
Yeah. Taylor Adams, is he just growing? Like he was a good player at GWS, but is he just growing? Is he the next captain? Do you see?
I'd say the age profile might be a little bit of a worry. It'll depend how long Pendlebury hangs around.
Because he'll be 29 by the end of the year. Pendlebury with that so-called basketball background, which I heard for the first time this week. He'll be he's just turned 34.
Yeah, I mean, as I said to me, you don't know when
he couldn't have much more left in him.
No,
but he seems to still be one of your best players, regardless. Like if you have a look at your BNF from last year, Crisp wins it, Maynard second, Mr. Basketball himself, Pendlebury comes in third.
Oh, there's a lot of injuries. I think last year, if he didn't get injured, Darcy Moore would have won it by a mile. He got injured about halfway through the year, and I think he came sixth. The thing with Adams, he's just been a battering ram his whole career. So again, how long is his career going to be? He's very much like Nathan Jones was for you. He'll throw his body on the grenade. So it's how fit's he going to stay? I think like Darcy Moore will probably be the next captain.
Yeah, I agree.
If he stays at the club,
Is that inside word there, Sly, or is that what you're?
No, just Darcy. Darcy and Jordan to go will be up for free agency at the end of the year, and so I'm hoping they stay, but who knows? They might just look at it and go, "This club's 4 years away. I want to play in a flag. Let me go to somewhere that might do it."
And I actually think you've got to seriously contemplate that with one of them.
Yeah,
I know which one I'd cut loose.
Yeah, Darcy's dad went to Melbourne, as you know, but he's always regretted not being a one-club player. So, how much that influences Darcy. But like I said, if they're looking at a 4-year rebuild and Geelong comes knocking and goes, we might be up there again, and you're a little bit young for us, but we'll take you.
Oh, yes, he is. No. He's not in their age profile. No. You would have saw that during the trade period this year where they get kids in the early 20s out and they bring in a 35-year-old ruckman.
Yeah.
He's definitely not. Yeah. Maybe 4 years later when he hits that, has the 3 in front, not 3 at the end, then he'd be more his suited. But, geez, could there be any more frustrating player, for clubs outside of the 8 than Jordan De Goey? Like he must give you guys meltdowns, whether it's in season, outside of season. What's going on with him? Where do you see his best spot?
Midfield going forward, I think, is where his future lays. Last year, from the second half of the year when he was moved into midfield, he actually had a really good season. But the problem is that off-field stuff. When it pops up, nobody's surprised, and you're thinking, geez, you're 25, 26.
He's going to be 27 in a few weeks' time.
Yeah. So,
is he ever going to learn?
Yeah. Well, that's the big problem, is he? You're getting paid the big bucks and you're commanding big dollars. You should be a leader at the club for the younger players coming through. When does this end? So that would be the huge. And I know a number of Collingwood supporters who feel just offload him at the end of the year because he's just too risky a proposition. I'd prefer to keep him, but I understand that sentiment though, because
what are you going to get for him? And that's the thing. What would you give up for him? I don't know if I could see many clubs, top 8 wise, paying first rounders for him at 27.
Well, it'll be a free agent, so it'll be whatever compensation.
Sorry, I'll take that back. Yeah, so he is free agent. So they're going to, all right then.
Which is probably
there'll be somebody, yeah. You'll get something back for him.
Yeah, it'd be better for Colin because if we traded him, we'd probably trade him for like a pick 20 and pay half his salary for the next 7 years. So it's good that we take that out of their hands and make it someone else's responsibility.
Don't forget.
You sound like you've had a recent situation where you're doing that. Is there anyone that we should know about that? Collingwood might be paying their salary, playing for the red, white, and blue. With Adam Treloar, were you sad to see him go, or okay, it wasn't a bad thing?
I was sad to see him go. But for me, anybody's tradable, but then get their worth and don't pay a third of their contract or whatever the case is. So that's what frustrated me. So the way they got rid of him, I thought was really poor.
Yeah, I agree on that.
Yeah, and I think Stevenson as well too. Like he's had one bad year. How many players had a bad year due to COVID? About bad 2 years due to COVID because of everything being.
Well, the thing with Stevenson, he had a terrible year and he was still like our second leading goal kicker and he played 15, 16 games. So imagine you got him right. Now, whether there's greater problems behind the scenes, don't know. We'll see at Melbourne. At North, he's already had a few incidents at North, like falling off his bike and stuff like that. So
we've all done that though.
Yeah, but not on 500.
Footy cars get stuck in the spokes.
Oh, I hate. Oh, yeah. When the spokey dokies get caught in the chain, that's it. It's all over.
The biggest tragedy of Stevenson, he was a pick 6. So that's pick 6 that's gone out of the club for a pick 25 or something. Yeah. You would have hoped that the pick 6 would be a 10-year player. Yeah. So that's gone. So whether Stevenson was a problem and they didn't feel like it manage him, it's just a real impact to the list and to our rebuild.
Yeah, it's a tough one. But hey, let's look to the future, because I tell you what, you mentioned this bloke a little bit earlier on, Nick Daicos. You wish you had 17 Nick Daicoses and a Pendlebury who was 10 years younger. How good is this guy in your eyes going to be for Collingwood?
Some of the stuff he's doing is very reminiscent of his dad at his best. You know, like they mentioned that one turn he did being like Pendlebury-like, and I was like, no, it's exactly like his dad. His dad at that time always seemed to dummy. You know, players always seem to go where you directed them, and then you just turn the other way. Dual-sided, which is awesome. You know, I recall Peter Daicos in about 88. He was having a really good start to the year, and I was saying, how are you dealing with the tags? He goes, I just play him on my opposite side, because he was so beautifully talented on both sides.
Yep.
You know,
which is a rarity these days.
Yeah,
rarity.
Yeah, and you know, he's done a few things which just he's already shown that composure on the field that, you know, usually takes you 40, 50 games to develop. So it's just about protecting him and bringing him up gradually.
Beautiful. Yeah, and he'll be straight in. He'll be straight in round one, won't he?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, you would have been straight in last year, so I don't think our list has gotten better since last year.
I think I've been straight in last year.
I must admit, his brother's actually I've been watching his brother a little bit as well too, and I don't mind him. Like when he first started, I wasn't too sure, but I've just watched him grow over the last couple of seasons as well too, Josh.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not just a Daicos. He's becoming his own player now, and I reckon having those two boys in the same team that is actually kind of special. So, I mean, very lucky to hang your hat on that one for a moment. Yeah,
I'll actually mention the two Browns. I actually think they'll have good years this year because, I don't think Callum was a world beater or anything, but when he first came on, he showed some composure. You tried to make the play, and then just over time, he became really confused and frazzled, and it was like he'd been over-programmed with too much information, and his natural instincts are going all right. So I'm hoping not just those two, but everyone else, but those two really sort of seem to suffer. I'm hoping those two really step up. And Tyler had a really good game on the weekend.
Didn't he break his arm in the first game he played, or?
Tyler, Will Kelly broke his arm.
Oh, sorry. I knew something broke the first game that they played.
If you just said someone broke something at Collingwood, you're gonna hit somebody. No, you'll be right. Don't worry about
that. Who else has got you a little bit excited too? What you've heard from the preseason, what you've seen as well too, because there's obviously not just the brothers, the Browns and the Daicoses. Who else has sort of caught your eye?
I liked the look of Kruger.
Same. I was going to say him.
Yeah, he had that.
What type of player is he?
Competitive looking beast. His attack on the footy was really good to watch. I mean, but it was, I think once he realised he was wearing a Collingwood jumper in the first half, he then tried to end it all by colliding headfirst into someone. But yeah, if we can psychologically get him over the stigma of wearing that jumper, he could be very, very valuable to us, I think, moving forward.
He's a big boy, 196 and 86 kegs, but that 86 kegs is probably pre-season weight.
Yeah. He reminds me
of stacked on a couple more.
Yeah, he reminds me a bit of Lee Brown's, knowing that he's a big guy, and if you're in my way, that's your fault, which I really like, because you get sometimes big players who don't play with that intent because they're so big they're afraid, or not afraid, but a little apprehensive they're going to crush someone. So I really like the looks of him. Some of those young guys like Oliver Henry, I thought he played a really average game, still ended up with 3 goals, so it's about being in the right position.
Ginnivan was another.
Yeah.
He's on the rookie list as well too. So he's played his 5 games last year as well too. So you look at your list profile, because even if you look at your list profile, from an experience side of things, you're sitting 10th on the ladder, so averaging around about 62 games across the board.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 players who have played more than 100 games and the rest haven't. So if you take out Pendlebury, Sidebottom, and Howe out of that list, and Jordan Roughhead, that drops not from 62. That goes a lot less as well. So there's a difference there. And your age, you're sitting at 13th, so he's 24 and a bit. So it's like I said, there's that anomaly with the age. If you drop those ones out, you are in that rebuild factor. And I think maybe there has to be, do you just want to come out and say, look, we are rebuilding? They've obviously got the new coach in. McRae would be, look, we're hoping to go forward. We'd love to play finals, but we've got to put the realistic hat. We've got to get the Mark Neild reality bus. Is it going to be one of those things, or just say, hey, listen, you've got to be patient. We've lost a lot of experience. Got to blood these new ones in.
I would rather they were pessimistic. I don't want them believing there's a quick turnaround and maybe even taking shortcuts. I think it's a long-term rebuild. They've got to get some higher picks in there also. I'd rather they just, I won't say tanked, but I'd rather have had a developmental year or three, pumped a lot of games into these kids, kept some of those older guys around as a framework. But sometimes I worry just the messages coming from the clubs, they seem to believe they're probably not as far away from bouncing back into the finals as they think. And one of the problems too, you go back to that fire sale losing Treloar and Stevenson and Phillips. I mean, they're the sort of mid-age players that you need in the side too, and so you've lost 3 of those. So you've brought in Lipinski, but the other guys you've brought in are just equally young. So I mean, that Charlie Dean was looking good, and realising he was at Collingwood, he slipped on a banana peel and did his leg, so he's out for about 10 weeks. And at Collingwood, 10 weeks is more like about 4 years. So, but I'm just hoping they're realistic about their appraisal of where they are and where they want to be going. Because, I mean, the other thing too is I don't want them to come up being a good side but not good enough. I mean, you saw the grand final last year. Did you watch that game? I'm not sure. But
I've watched it a few times.
Yeah. Watching it, like the Bulldogs side seems like a pretty quickly put together side. There's no genuine spine there, whereas the Melbourne side, you went out and got Lever. You went out and got May, who I really wanted at Collingwood. And then McDonald's there, Brown's there. You got Gawn, you got a really good midfield, and then just sort of sprinkled it with all these, other players, and it's just a really well put together side. If psychologically you keep your heads, you should dominate for the next 4 or 5 years at least. Whereas the Bulldogs, Lorden, more of a flanker type forward. Bruce is sort of not a genuine key forward type. And the key defenders are not real genuine key defenders. It's one of these hodgepodge sides, and they're always going to be good, but are they going to be good enough on the day? And that's what I don't want, because I've seen enough of that at Collingwood, of bringing up valiant sides. And you go back to, I always say, you go back to 2018, you had a grand final team where the full forward was Cox, so that's an American basketballer who didn't even know what football was 5 years ago.
Yeah, but mind you, he dominated Richmond. And I love just bringing that up. The only team that's ever been coxed is Richmond.
Then you had
that was one of the best nights of football I've ever been to.
Yeah. Then you had Mychek, who, he was rookie as a defender. You had Howe as centre-half back, who's, obviously got a great mark and all that, but he's not a genuine key defender. And you had Tyson Goldsack as your full back. And so they had a couple of injuries, but it was really sort of a patchwork side, and West Coast
You'd
really
rather have a side that's virtually even across. So they're even. They may not bat as deep in the midfield, but they've got some genuine firepower up front. They've got some solidarity down back, and they're going to work with the midfield. So that type of spread than having, I don't want to go on about the Bulldogs, but having a really deep midfield, but you're thinned out at both ends.
Yeah, and then you end up getting a lot of players sort of undersized or underweight, and they play those key positions. I mean, I've always been a big fan of Tyson Goldsack, but I mean, he just wasn't strong enough for Kennedy on that day, because Kennedy is genuinely a strong key forward, and Goldsack's a utility flanker type. So
Darling, look at the size of him. Like, try stopping that man mountain. You can stop him this year, but back then.
So I want them to look at that side and think, we're not going to put a square peg in the round hole and just go, that's it, we've done a good job. It's like, go get the right peg for that right hole. And, and you go back to our 210 side, that had a really good composition of players who were playing genuinely in the position they needed to play in. So that's what I want for this rebuild.
Yeah, and I think they've started that journey in the right direction with that too. You've got a young list. You've got a young untested coaching panel. I think the whole idea is to get them all to gel and build to something over the next 2 to 3 years. And, what you need to pick up on the way through, you can address rather than some of the piecemealing that we've been exceptionally good at.
Yeah, but I think you're right. You have to plan it.
Yeah.
It's a very easy thing to say, but we are. What do we need in the next couple of years? Who's coming up? And then just if you have to put all the eggs in the basket to get that one across, do it. Because when it does work, May and Lever, perfect example. I can tell you now, Melbourne supporters at that particular stage are going, why are we paying so much for these two? Well, I look behind me now and I've got premiership posters behind me. Yeah. The two main reasons why we got that are those two. So you've got to invest
it's a template
and get it right.
That's made Hawthorn so successful there. You top up with need. and keep developing.
Oh, they turned Brian Lake into a 3-time premiership player, Norm Smith medalist.
Yeah,
because I know the need.
Yeah, and I know he believes if he was there a year earlier, he believes they would have won against Sydney. So I want to build a team that's not just good enough to get there. I want to build a team that's good enough to win. And I think too many times in Collingwood's history, we've built teams good enough to get there. Yep. And unfortunately, they've fallen short to being like that 1 or 2 class players short of getting them over the line. So, you look at what Melbourne did last year. They weren't short of 1 or 2 class players. They had, the guy I really sort of credit at Melbourne's Gawn. Gawn's just a great leader. He's got that unrelenting will to pull the side over the line. Yep. And you can see you need those sort of players in your side. And you can have players who aren't as talented and have that. And it's like, well, hang on, you still need talent. Still need players.
That was the Richie Vandenberg at Hawthorn. When they first started coming through, they said, why'd you pick this guy as captain? But he just led from the front. Didn't have the greatest skill base. He said, follow me, boys. And that line in the sand, perfect example of where, you know what, I'll throw cut lunches and do whatever I need to do and I'll get X amount of weeks, but I'll be in there fighting for you. And you just want somebody who you can just jump on their back.
And that was the same as Nick Maxwell in 210. He was just fantastic. Very much the same. Like when he was appointed captain, everyone was shaking their heads and then you saw him as captain, you think, geez, he's actually a great leader. Yeah. And he probably saved that drawn grand final. He was that one guy who said, I will do whatever's required to win this. I will even risk losing it just to, rather than stand back here and think, just let it slip away, which unfortunately at Collingwood Grand Finals, which Spook and I have seen too many of, you see side or teams just let the game slip out of their fingers because they don't have those match winners to go, I'll be the one who'll drag us over the line here.
All right.
Like Dom Sheed.
It was a good kick. Can we just admit it was a good kick? It was an absolute corker. It was a corker. All righty, gents.
I love it.
Sorry, Spook.
No, I was going to say just to go back to what you were saying about building something that's going to be sustainable for success. I think the other key takeaway that they need to start learning to do is once they obtain that success is how to maintain it. The 210 side is probably the best Collingwood side I've ever seen in my life. And within, 12 months later, it was dismantled. Does that mean that the club just doesn't know what to do when it reaches the summit? What do you do to stay up there? How do you motivate your list to keep wanting to continue to succeed, like Richmond and Hawthorn and Geelong?
I think we can answer. Spook and I have seen 2 grand finals, and both grand finals, both flags have been the instrument of the club's self-destruction.
No,
both times.
Yeah.
True. You've got to learn from this stuff, and also, while you're plotting this course of success, is about what you do once you get to there. What magic do you need to weave to keep this group together, keep everybody focused? Not over celebrate in the first 10 minutes after the win. All that type of stuff.
I think it's
I want them to be successful for a long time.
That early one that you said, Spook, the 2010 one was just that was strange. Yeah, you won that. Come into 2011. You're getting rid of a guy who's taking you to another grand final. Like that was strange. And Hawthorn have just done exactly the same thing. Now, how's that one going to pan out?
Come on, mate. Be fair. We're made of premiership coaches. They're just all over the place at Collingwood. We can afford to just ditch one. Who cares?
All righty, boys. Listen, no doubt in all of the Collingwood, I'll say it, shit that might be sitting around at the moment, there's got to be a gold nugget in there. There's got to be somebody who's going to be your breakout that nobody has seen, nobody has heard about. There's got to be who's that person, young or old, that is going to have a year that, geez, if I listened to Sly and Spook at the start, I would have seen this one coming.
Geez, that's a really good question. Spook, I'll let you do this one.
The one that initially
Sly says no one
to mind, and he's not a player that we've seen much of or anyone's seen much of, but they do rate that Ash Johnson. I think it's Ash Johnson.
Yeah, that's actually
Ashton Johnson.
Yeah.
Some of the track watchers have been going nuts with some of the things he's able to do. Now, whether that translates to the big time, that's yet to be seen. But it's the one that I'm keen to see what he's capable of. I don't think he's played in either of the pre-season games or anything. He's probably injured. I think that's the way that we call him these days. Straight to the infirmary or intensive care. We'll sign you up. As long as you can hold a pen, you get a job at Collingwood.
Yep.
But he's the one that I'm very keen on. And Poulter's probably another one that I quite like last
year. He showed quite a bit last year.
Yeah, and he just looks like he just wants to be competitive. Yeah. He's just got that face that just says,
"I'm having a crack."
Yep. See ball, get ball.
Yeah, the ones you want. And he was touted quite highly. He slid a little bit for you, I think, in that draft as well, too. You got him at 30, which I thought was a little bit lower. I thought he was going to go a little bit higher in that draft. So that's a nice little pickup as well, too. He's 192, probably comes in at around about 84, 85 kilos. Perfect just to slot into that midfield or just slot onto the half-back line, half-forward line. You've got plenty of flexibility. But unfortunately, though, for every Poulter and for every Ash Johnson, somebody's going to have to break down. Somebody's going to be getting the tap on the shoulder from Flea and say, "Look, I'm sorry, mate. We're going to have to put you out to pasture." Whose last season can you see in the black and white stripes?
Sidebottom.
Yeah, I think that's already begun.
Yep.
2 years ago.
Yeah, I don't. He's struggled since the grand final. Or since
he's got a bigger farewell career than Farnham.
Yeah. The other one for me is Jeremy Howe. He's played like 12 games the last 2 years.
Yep.
Naturally, we re-signed him. I think we signed him to a 9-year contract. But he's a player who really relies on the leap, and he's had a lot of leg injuries in the last 2 years. So I'd be worried that he's going to lose that spring, and he's just going to become pedestrian. He's in that age.
Yeah, he's in trouble because he's played his last 2 seasons, got 12 games in total.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yet before that, he played 8 seasons in a row of 20 or more games. So he was unbreakable. Now he's just broken down.
I forgot who the player was. It was that GWS game where his knee was caved in. So, it was actually an impact injury. But since that, and a lot of players, when they have those sort of injuries,
they never recover.
Some other part of their body breaks down because they're compensating in some way. So, he's the one I'd be pretty worried about this year. And
it takes twice as long. 31, he'll be 32 halfway through the season.
Yep. So
it does take twice as long to recover from those ones. That's a bit of a say. So what's the headline for Collingwood going to be? If I open up the Herald Sun into the season, turn to the back page, article written by Sly and Spook, what's the Collingwood headline going to be?
So would you say end of the season or middle of the season? Or
we'll go end of the season.
Okay.
If you want to put one now and then end of the season, go for it.
COVID wipes out entire Collingwood list. No way.
Now, or is that at the end of the season?
That'll be during the whole season. Some hope for the future. I think we'll finish low, but they'll see enough in players, the younger players, to believe that they're on the right track for the future.
Yep.
Big concern, it will be those older guys. If they start dropping off, then you're relying more on those younger guys, and you're exposing them a lot more. So I just think, it'll be something pretty pedestrian. I think we're going to have a great year. I think it'll be pretty, in a lot of regards, it'll just be middling.
Will it be similar to last year?
I think the thing, watching that game against GWS, it was like, at least we're not going sideways, and just wondering, what are we doing here? So if we lose, I think we'll lose trying to play a style of game, which
is what you want, really, let's be honest. You'd rather go down fighting than go down around the boundary line.
That's it.
Yeah. So
we'll eke out about 5 or 6 wins, but it's not so much the wins. It's just that sense of development. You want to see something gelling.
You want to see it.
Yeah.
We're going in the right path. We're going in the right direction. I can see a game plan. I can see something different from the Buckley realm.
Well,
as long as we don't start running around in ever-diminishing size circles, I'll be happy.
Well, we did finish second last. I mean, there's really only one way to go from there. You wouldn't think we're going to get worse. You think there's a few teams who potentially will be worse than us. And I think we'll probably bully a few of the weaker teams, probably have some valiant efforts against some of the better teams, and we'll probably win some, upset game. But overall, 7-8 wins. And just sort of hope for the future.
Nice. All right, boys. Time to put the nuggets on the chopping block. We did this last year and we're going to do it again. So, looking at the realm so far, everything that you've seen, preseason games, who's your premier for 2022? Can be multiple teams, and why?
So I'll go Collingwood. No, sorry. No, I'm going to just go Richmond for the hell of it. I think Melbourne's the best team. My biggest concern is will they be able to keep that hunger there? The one thing, I don't know who your assistant coaches are, but the one thing is Simon Goodwin doesn't come from, like the one thing I'll say about McRae is because he came from the Richmond background and also that Brisbane background, he knows what it's like to have to come up year after year, when they've been successful. So for Melbourne, I wonder if like they lose a little bit of the hunger or a little bit of the focus.
Yeah, so they got Adam Uze, who was there during the Hawthorn years.
Yep.
And Mark Williams, who obviously...
Williams comes from Port Adelaide, so that's great. Yeah, well, but actually, Mark Williams seems to have done a lot for Melbourne too.
Oh, you don't understand those two guys, what they did. Williams from a just development perspective and from a strategical perspective, like we needed them. And I think that's sometimes regardless of you might have the greatest list available, but if you haven't got a game plan or don't have people who can teach that game plan and why we're going this way, we didn't have that. We had the cattle, but we just didn't have people to back Goodwin up.
Yeah, we
and
saw
then
that.
they got two people in, and it's made a massive amount of difference.
Yeah, we saw that in 2-12 and 13 and 14 and 15. 16 also.
So you're going with Richmond. Who are you going with, Spook?
No, I think your boys will probably do it again. I think, but where do you think you'll be? Do you think you'll handle winning the flag and what comes with it well? Or that'd be my only outlier would be about how you respond. I think in terms of talent, you should do it easy.
Yeah,
I think from the perspective of I've said there's two things that are going to stop us: is injury and the mental side of things. Now, the fact they won it in Perth, they're keen to win one here. We all know that.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to get ahead of themselves because honestly, what have they got to get themselves ahead of? They've had one grand final win, 57 years, and they've had a couple of finals appearances in that time as well too. So yes, you've won one, but like I've said before, you know what's better than being a premiership player? Two-time premiership player. 3-time premiership. That's when you get to that upper echelon. This mob will go, we want to be better. We want to be better than Richmond. We want a dynasty. And they're in the perfect spot to do it. But yeah, you're right. The mental side of things, that's where I see it maybe. I don't think it'll be as bad as what people think, but I reckon there's going to be an injury or two. They may not win as many games, but I think they'll peak again at the back end as well. So.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, especially
it'll be interesting to see.
But if we have more of a stable season as well, that'll be that'll help a few other sides.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think we lost 4 games last year. I don't think as long as we finish top 4, that's all you need to do. Finish top 4, that just makes it a lot easier because if you lose that first one, you've got an opportunity to back it up as well too. So.
Yeah, what they should really do with the premiership though is they should just, when you lose a game, the premiership should go to whoever you lost it to. So you should really just give the premiership to us.
You got your 4th grand final, wasn't it? Didn't you protest against when you had won the 4 in a row? The last one you protested, and then they played the game and you won it.
No, back then the system was if you finished on top and you lost, you lost the grand final, you could challenge and play a rematch. So that's how I think we got about 19 of our grand finals.
Smoke if you got them, boys. That's the rule. Go with it.
We did talk about this once before, just to go off on a tangent for a second. I think we ended up being pretty even in that. I think we challenged a couple and won and challenged a couple and lost. Yeah. So it sounded like a far better system. They should bring it back.
Do you reckon the Bulldogs would challenge last year's?
Oh, we're thinking more about Collingwood. A lot of seasons will be going into November.
Just keep challenging it again. Just keep going again.
Double or nothing.
Brownlow medalist. Do you have a Brownlow medalist?
No, I'll go. I was actually going to say him.
Who'd you say, Spook?
Nick Daicos. Has anyone ever won the Rising Star and the Brownlow in their debut year?
I reckon if there was one person who would have done it, Brad Hardy. If there was one, because his first season in the VFL, he won it, and he would have won the Rising Star if they had one. So
it's hard to include.
Matt Rowell would have won it if he didn't get injured because he had 9 votes after 3 games. So there was an opportunity there too. So there's not. Besides that, there hasn't been anyone. Probably the closest would be Sam Walsh.
Yeah, well, I know he's injured. He's going to miss like the first month or something, but I'm going to go with Walsh.
Nice. Yeah, Coleman medalist. And actually, one other question I've been throwing out at people as well too on the home stretch. What would you rather win, a Brownlow a coach's award, not from your own coach, but the coach's votes award, or the MVP, which the players vote on?
As a player,
I'd
want to win the coach's award.
Yep. Luke, what about you?
Yeah, I think there's prestige with the Brownlow, but Certainly. It really is a. I think the MVP and the coaches' awards got better integrity behind it.
Yeah,
I think the Brownlow's a crock. It's got the prestige, but I mean, you look at, for example, 210 when Judd won it, playing for a side that had no other player taking votes from him, and then Swan came second, playing for a side who had all these other players taking votes from him. So you're always getting disproportionate voting.
Yeah.
So if they found a way to equalise that would be good. But like in terms of the coaches, seem to be watching and knowing what they're expecting from each player and what they're doing and how they're impacting. You think that's got a bit more parity in it?
Yeah. Well, you'd have to go back as far as 1993, which was probably Gavin Wanganeen for somebody who wasn't a midfielder, and 92 and 91, which was Scott Wine and Jim Steins, that wasn't a midfielder to win it.
Yeah.
So what's that, 30 years?
And that's the other problem. It really has become a midfielders award, and it's really just pretty much an award for possessions almost.
It is. Well, if you have a look at the last few, Wines, Neil, Fife, Mitchell, they're just accumulators.
Yeah.
But they don't damage. That's the other thing as well too. Last but not least, Coleman medalist. Who's going to be kicking him through the big sticks? Nick Daicos again?
That'd be Nick again, I think. Yeah, he's going for the trifecta here.
Jeez, who won it last year?
Harry Mackay.
Oh.
And he's also injured for the first few weeks as well.
Yeah, I'll go for Joe Danaher.
Joe Danaher, nice. Come up a few times as well too. All right.
Which of the King brothers is not injured?
Max.
Yeah, I'll go for him.
Yeah, come up a few times as well too, guys. You are on the ball. Hey, can I just say, Collingwood supporters, if you're not now, also the Collingwood Rant, what have you got in store for your listeners this year? What are they going to be looking forward to? What are they going to be able to hear? Any new segments coming up? What's the gist of what your two gentlemen are going to be rolling out this year?
I'm going to do something really different this year. I'm going to be angry and bitter.
Yeah, I'll aim for 2 bad jokes and that'll be about it. We've completely taken the off season off.
Yep.
We haven't really discussed too much about what we were thinking of doing. We tend to fly by the seat of the pants at the best of times anyway. So, I mean, some of it will be, I think, driven by how the season starts and how we tactically set up to that. I mean, we've been, especially Sly's been critical of everything over the last couple of years. That day that I came over and you'd torn down in your shrine to Buckley, I knew something was up. So I think, look, if it becomes, and I know I love those development years that, when you start seeing players coming on, it is engaging, even though you're not winning, and that could be some of the drive behind some of the rants this year.
Oh, you also lose a bit of that pressure.
Or we can just dribble shit for an hour and move on.
Hey, and if people keep listening, why not? We've dribbled shit for an hour tonight.
No, I think they're listening. I mean, if we ever find those 3 people, we'll have a beer.
Yeah. We're all in the room together right now. But look, Collingwood supporters, you can't do anything better than don't worry about your 360s. Don't worry about being on the couch. Don't worry about your late nights football review. This is the show for every Collingwood supporter to be listening to. It is the Collingwood Rant. We've got the Spookster. We've got the Sly Star. Gentlemen, I can't thank you more than enough. And that is your 2022 Collingwood season preview. But gentlemen, I have one last question. And that is this. Sly and Spook, how do you two gentlemen want your footy?
Lace out.
Yeah, lace out by delivered by Nick Daicos.
I don't know, gentlemen. I think it's going to be a tough year for the Pies, but as long as it puts a smile on your face, that's what it's all about.
That's it.
Good. You two are absolutely
Thanks for having us on.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the latest episode of Lace Out. Head over to iTunes and Spotify to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. And remember, join us every single Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, on our Facebook page with yours truly, Christopher Pepper, and the co-host with the most, Jamie Wallis, giving you your footy how you want it. Lace out.